Hello everyone, it's the 23rd of November 2024. I'm Gary Waterman, a former UK Police Constable. Welcome to part 5 of my Department of Work and Pensions document. You can use this as a template and verify and corroborate all of this information. Please go and do that to check that it is true. Don't just take my word for it. You can find this document and all of the other ones that are completed in a public document file that is available for everyone. You can get that by emailing me at GaryTheTruthSetsUsFree@gmail.com. That's Gary with one R, TheTruthSetsUsFree@gmail.com, or you can email me on GaryTimeForFreedom@proton.me. That's GaryTimeForFreedom@proton.me. You can look on my Telegram channel, which is Gary The Truth Sets Us Free. My YouTube is Gary Time for Freedom. My Facebook is Gary Waterman with a picture of me jumping with a mountain in the background. So let's continue with this document, and this is part 5, page 106. And I just would like to clarify that some people have suggested, well, we've looked at some of the companies that you're mentioning, for example, White Hats Limited, and it doesn't appear to link to Donald Trump or anything like that. No, I suspect what they're doing is using companies as a front for this, okay? And you've seen a good example of that with the organ company that we mentioned in the last part, I believe. And of course, there's no accountability and liability. And because of this, it allows them to use fronts for companies and launder money through companies, etc., etc. So anyway, moving on. And of course, there is a huge connection. We can tell that it's all a centralized international government fraud, because when you research, it all links back so far. There's connections to the company that I was part of, pretty much from every area of research, and that links to the intelligence agencies, the police, the NHS, the UK government, the Russian government, and international governments, basically, as well as the monarchy. So it's a complete centralized criminal system that's been imposed on everyone. And because it's linked to the taxation system, that gives them the ability to defraud the masses through that, and also victimize and exploit the masses. But in particular, it appears as though they are victimizing and facilitating the most awful crimes against children. So anyway, let's move on. Society of Local Authority Chief Executives and Senior Managers. And we saw in the last part that it was a fraudulent entity company, because you've got Swift Incorporations and Jordans and Sons on the incorporation. Looking back into the International Organ Company, we have Stephen Hamill linked to Rennie Grove Peace Hospice Care. So remember, they had the organ company, if you remember the last video, but they were appearing to suggest that it was to do with arts, as in musical organs. But here we are, we now have connections to medical premises, and you'll see some more in a minute. So here we are, we have Rennie Grove Peace Hospice, and then we have Rennie Grove Hospice Care on the left, and going into it on the right, we're then looking at the incorporation document on the right here, which you can find within the filing history. And on one of the pages of that incorporation document, you can see DJ Dwyer. That's Daniel Dwyer of D&D Law Agencies, a very significant company in the fraud, and they feature throughout. And in fact, that's the same company that Tommy Robinson is linked to via his previous name. Very quickly back into the same company. So all we're doing is going back, looking at some other directors now. So on the right, you can see Andrea Heyman, and she links to an oil company. Remember, oil companies are huge in relation to this. Most oil companies, particularly BP and Shell, appear to be fraudulent criminal entity companies that I've seen, and they connect the Russian government to the UK government very quickly. And remember, you know, what we're seeing with all these conflicts, they're all got, when you look at the Rishi Sunak document that I've done and the associated videos, you'll see that weapons companies are linking all of these nations that we're led to believe are at risk of conflict. Okay, it's an international conspiracy against the masses, because all the time they make us fear a war. They can pump more tax contributions through this system of fraud and defraud the masses through it. And every now and then, this is how evil these people are, they actually do carry out large attacks, even though they're working for both sides on this collaborative fraud against everybody. They actually murder people. I mean, it's unreal. It's just, there's no other word for it other than evil. So here's Central Oils, and you can see they're linked to Baker Tilly restructuring on the right there, top right, well, they're featuring the fraud. Then you've got on the left, going back to the International Organ Company, whatever it was, you've got Roger Lander on the left. And on the right, you can see here links to the New School of Organ Studies. Okay, bearing in mind we were talking about an organ company. And the next director that I found was Edward Sharp within that organ company, and they linked to Evergreen. Hopefully I don't need to explain that. You may have heard the connections, supposed connections, which I haven't personally found, but many people suggest that Hillary Clinton is linked to the Evergreen companies. I haven't looked specifically to find those connections. But a lot of people suggest that ties in with the child trafficking. So on the left here, the incorporation document for that Evergreen company, you can see Evergreen Recruitment Limited. It looks as though it's a forged document, first of all. You can see at the top here, although I haven't highlighted it, you can see the lines missing behind the company name. Okay, it looks as though it's been added afterwards. And you can see that Hallmark is on that document. Well, that links throughout the fraud and connects very high-profile cases to this as well. On the right, the same director is linked to Fieldfisher Germany LLP. So let's look at Fieldfisher Germany. And you can see they were dissolved in January 2022 within the highlighted box on the left. And that is when I'm starting to make some inquiries with my company about the accounts. Okay, may or may not be connected, but potentially is. On the right here, you can see it was incorporated in 2011, and then they're dissolving just at this time. Now, Germany is very significant in this, with the connections through to a lot of this, and the companies stemming back from the Nazis. But the research suggests it goes back a lot further than that, and the Pharaoh, ancient Egyptian bloodline are behind all of this, it appears, and have been behind all of these wars, but also infiltrated in a massive way the Jewish religion to try and blame this on the Jews, and therefore assist in the destruction of Israel. And there's a lot to that. Same director now is linked to Global Sustainability Challenge Limited, and you can see on the right in the little box there where I've highlighted it, they are now going into liquidation at the time of this document. Even though they were incorporated in 2006, you can see on the left, I haven't highlighted that, 2006. And on the incorporation document, you have Fieldfisher here. Now, this is interesting. Now, the same director, remember, this is coming from this organ company, but they've put the type of company to do with arts, etc. I can't remember that you can see that. I can't remember the exact wording. But here we are. This is very important because we now have Public Health Register linked to this. Now, many of you have hopefully heard about the organ harvesting. There is a lot of money involved in illegal organ harvesting, and we now have the Public Health Register linked to that company that we were talking about. Now, back into the fraternity company that we were looking at on the left here, you've got Karen Randall, and she links to Universal Global Networks Management, so the Universal company, heavy Hollywood and music industry connection. On the right here, you can see they're also linked to the Universal Music Holdings UK Limited. I haven't gone any more detail into that, just because I haven't had time, really, to be honest. So let's do a new search. Bearing in mind we're talking about DWP, or Department of Work and Pensions, and the stemming from Bournemouth, or the research that I'm doing and where I've acquired forged bank documents. On the left here, when you search DWP within Companies House, you get a few companies come up, and one of them is DWP Bournemouth Limited on the right here, of an address in Parkstone Road in Poole, Dorset, which is literally just down the road from where the company is based, where I acquired these forged bank documents. So let's look at DWP in brackets Bournemouth Limited. Here they are. And they were incorporated, you can see on the right, in December 2000, less than a year before the World Trade Center disaster. And on their incorporation documents, you can see the corporate law services. Well, you'll see from some of my other documents that links to the fraud. Now, when I was in the police in Dorset, and specifically in Bournemouth, I remember a lot of people talking about Dave Wells, and a lot of people were saying he's, a potentially unsavoury character. And I've never met him, so I can't comment on that. And he was involved in many of the properties springing up and being taken over around that area. I mean, Dave Wells' properties were absolutely everywhere when I was policing in Bournemouth, Boscombe area. And here we are. We now have a connection to Dave Wells, according to this. Okay, and there was a notoriety that many of the properties associated with Dave Wells were where people were housed who were having either drug or alcohol problems. Okay, so we used to go to the addresses a lot. But let's have a look. So Dave Wells links to Bollingwood Limited. Here's Bollingwood Limited. Have an address in Parkstone Road in Poole. And if you go into Bollingwood Limited on the right, you can see Peter Norman. And Peter Norman links to Rawlins Davy Reeves Limited. Well, that's a solicitor's firm, and you will see that from in my document, the World Trade Center Part 2, you will see that it links to many solicitors in the area, making links to the police as well. And here we are, we have one of those solicitors already linked to it. On the right there, going into Bollingwood, you can see that Richard Luck has 348 previous or current companies. And here we are, we have LR King William Street Limited on the right. Now, hopefully you remember in one of my, I don't know if I've said it in the video actually, when I was in Dorset Police in Bournemouth, I went out on a night in town off duty with somebody, and there was Prince William dancing in the club. And there's various connections to Prince William and this connection of fraud now, linking to King Charles as well. And here we are, we have a King William Street Limited. Let's have a look at that company. And you can see on the right, bottom right-hand side, it was started in 1999, 2 years before the World Trade Center disaster. But it changed its name on the 12th of September 2000. Almost exactly a year, 1 day difference to the World Trade Center disaster. And on the incorporation document on the bottom left here, you can see you have ICC company formations. Well, that links to the World Trade Center disaster document that I've completed and to Robert Maxwell, the research around Robert Maxwell. On the right here, same director links to London and Regional Retail Management Services Limited. So we now have a link to London from this Bournemouth company, David Wells. And you can see it's dissolved. But on its previous company names on the overview, you can see it changed its name here. The last time it changed its name was on the 17th of October 2000, and then it changed its name again after the World Trade Center disaster in December 2001. So it changed its name before and changed its name after, and there has been no change in that company name since, even though it is an active company. Oh, sorry, it dissolved in 2014. So no change from 2001 until 2014. Interestingly, notice the previous name, London and Regional Canterbury Limited. Well, you'll be seeing shortly the research in relation to the Archbishop of Canterbury and how that links into all of this. And hopefully many of you are aware of the scandal that has recently happened in relation to that and the link to apparent child abuse, etc. On the left, we have Chewton Glen Hotels Limited. This is significant because there's two significant weddings that I am particularly and personally aware of that occurred at this location, and we're going to go into that at a later date if necessary. And I'm just showing on the map here where there's a Chewton Glen on the right. You can see where the red marker is where Chewton Glen Hotel is in Dorset, or it's actually Hampshire. And then you can see on the left how close that is to Bournemouth, which is where the company is based, where this all started for me. Same director links to Atlas Hotels, Exeter City Centre. Well, that had already linked to Jeffrey Epstein very, very quickly, and we're going to show a little bit of that in a minute. So here's on the right, Atlas Hotels, Exeter City Centre, and the address underneath there, 55 Baker Street, links to the fraud. And the same director that we were looking at earlier, Richard, links to LR Horizon Limited. Hopefully you're all aware of the Horizon Fujitsu post office scandal, the largest miscarriage of justice in the UK history, where 900 postmasters were wrongly convicted. Here we are, we have a Horizon company which is featured throughout the fraud, and it was dissolved in 2020. And on the left here you can see it was incorporated in August 2001, a month almost to the day prior to the World Trade Center disaster. And you can see on the right it's a fraudulent entity company because Swift Incorporations Limited and Jordan's Limited is on the incorporation document. and I know I keep saying this, but please go and search yourself, Jordan's Limited on Companies House. You will see that the incorporation document has a completely different name than has been registered on that record, and the company name on that is in Hammerplag Limited. That's never been registered. You won't be able to find that on a search, which means it's a fraudulent entity company because the incorporation document has never been registered lawfully, which is the main legal document. And of course they would have known that. Same director now is also linked to a Swiss company, LR Swiss Cottage Limited. Hopefully many of you will be aware of the Swiss connection and the apparent evidence to suggest that the Pharaoh, sinister, evil people behind this are based in Switzerland. It's obviously where the World Economic Forum holds its meeting in Davos. It's also where the Hadron Collider is based, CERN. If you look at CERN Hadron Collider, you'll see the symbol of that as 3 6s, 666 twisted round into its emblem, and they're trying to create the God particle. Remember, this is a spiritual war, everybody. Okay, this is a very spiritual war. I'm going to do a video about that soon, and the Bereshit prophecy, which is very important and may save humanity. Now, that company changed its name very relevantly. You can see it was originally called Interdevelopments Limited, according to the register, from 1993, but it changed its name on April 2023, as I'm exposing the fraud. It hadn't changed its name prior to that, only afterwards. And look at the address on it. It's 788 to 790 Finchley Road. Well, if you type in and search Finchley Road fraud, you will see an article specifically mentioning that address as being linked to international government fraud, corrupt politicians, mafia, dictatorships, and defrauding the public through the taxation system. Gordon Bowden, God rest his soul, appeared to have been the person that identified the connection to that address, which was an empty address. No one was there, but there appeared to be over 260,000 companies registered there to avoid accountability and liability. Okay, if there's nobody there, how can you serve any papers on someone for any illegitimate activity? And of course, our governments would know about this, and Tony Blair specifically had companies linked there, and also connections now being made to Denmark, significant connections to Denmark. Anyway, the same director is linked, you can see here, to LR Hampstead Limited. Now, this is very important because we've already made connections in this document earlier to the Hampstead child abuse inquiry. Very quick connections to Ricky Dearman and the research surrounding that, a very sinister case where 2 poor children made claims that they were sexually abused multiple times, but also that they were forced to take part in the unaliving of poor babies. It's a very awful case. And anyway, let's have a look at LR Hampstead Limited. And you can see here they changed their name. They were panicking as I was exposing this. On the bottom right there, they were incorporated in 1994, changed their name on the 24th of April 2023, because that removes the accountability and liability. And it appears to be a forged document, and that they have removed the company name from that document. Now, there's only 3 companies out of probably 5 and a bit thousand companies I've looked at out of 5 million. There's only 3 I've seen where the company name isn't actually there, or is, I mean, there's a few where you can't read it up, but this is quite clearly a forged document. It certainly appears to be, doesn't it? Look at all the lines missing, and then the company name's missing. And very significantly, you have Ian Saunders, which is mentioned a lot, being linking to Waterloo. So we're not just talking about a company, we're talking about a specific name. And of course, there's been no verification on Companies House deliberately by the governments. So this, again, allows the ability to launder money and remove any accountability and liability. Completely criminal, okay? On the right there, just to confirm, under LR Hampstead, you have Waterloo under the People Records. They also have a company, when you go into the People record and click to the right, you'll see a tab. I think it's significant person of significant control or something like that. And you'll see that the London and Regional Group Property Holdings Limited is shown on there. Now, property is huge in relation to this. This is how it all started for me, for a real estate company where I was a director, and I made inquiries in relation to our accounts, which led to all of this, with multiple resignations etc., etc., and eventually then removing me as a director for refusing to file our accounts with forged bank documents, which I knew would be a serious crime. On the right there, someone within LR Hampstead now is Mitchell Friend. Interesting name. And they were appointed in February 2024 as I'm exposing this fraud. Possibly not a real person or somebody using false details. And they are linked to Atlas Hotels, in brackets, Bristol North Limited. Well, on the right, you can see my previous research, Jeffrey Epstein, in relation to Jeffrey Epstein, Atlas Hotels, Bristol Property Limited. And that links to Swift and Jordan's. And you can go and look at the Jeffrey Epstein document. I'm in the process of updating it, actually. On the left, LR Hampstead. Going into it, you have Philip Bunt. And he links to the Central British Fund for World Jewish Relief, in brackets, the. Now, there are many connections to the Jewish religion, many Jewish companies, but I actually believe they've been massively infiltrated by non-Jews, and they're using it as a cover to ultimately destroy Israel. And I think that's quite obvious to me, because there's connections to the Charles Darwin Trust, the theory of evolution. Okay, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more in one of my videos in relation to the Bereshit prophecy. Sorry. So here we are. We have that company, and on the incorporation document, you can see various royal connections, royal companies, Royal Ballet School Limited. But you've also got media companies at the top there: The Economist newspaper group, Equity and Law, Frensham Height Education. So we've got educational establishments, and a Rothschild company. No surprise, I'm sure many of you heard about the Rothschilds and all these other royal companies here. So that's very relevant. And of course, that means there's a legal and financial connection to this Jewish company and to those. Now, the royal connection suggests that their bloodline is ancient Pharaoh. And that, I think, is what we are really seeing here. But further down on the incorporation document, so on the bottom right, you can see the page number 25 and 26. You have a signature of someone with Dereya. Okay, you can just see that in the box there, Dereya. Well, why is that likely significant? Well, that's because the person that was overseeing the department where I was reporting the fraud in Dorset Police was called Sam Dereya. And they moved her from that position. You can see here on the right articles in relation to that around July 2023, as I'm reporting to all of the relevant authorities this international government fraud and the link to child trafficking. And here's Sam Dereya on the left. I also found connections to shareholders within my company with the same surname, Dereya, who had told me that they had members of their family within the police. Back into LR Hampstead, you can see on the right here that Christopher King links to David Lloyd companies. Now, again, this is very relevant on a personal level, and that will come out in due course. On the right here, we have another King William Street Limited company, different one, same director, another David Lloyd company. And this is just to show, I should have put this earlier, but when you go into Waterloo Secretaries, you can see they're linked to over 47,000 companies. But it's very clear we have a centralized system of international government fraud that is targeting humanity, with a very small number of people at the top of this. But it is all criminal, okay, completely criminal against their own legislations, and it appears as though the police are enforcing this crime. So is the legal process. Everything appears to be set up around this system of international government fraud, and the poor children suffering as a result of it deliberately. So researching that company we saw earlier, the London and Regional Group Properties one, or London and Regional Company, brings up all of these. So we're just going to have a look at a couple of these. Here's the London and Regional Properties Limited, and on their incorporation document it appears to be forged, and again linked to Waterloo's and Ian Saunders. You can see the line missing behind the company name. It's not consistent with the rest of the document, where it's all on the line. And often you'll see that the company name isn't even straight. And then we've got another one, London and Regional Property Fund number 7. And on the right, you can see that dissolved as I'm exposing the fraud on the 7th of May 2024. even though it was incorporated in 1994. On the incorporation document, a name that features throughout the fraud, Michael John Hope, very likely someone that's deceased or fought a stolen identity or no longer alive, or made up. But Michael, if you're about, please contact me. Let's discuss this. You can contact me on the emails if you're really about. Another company here, just searching again, you've got the London and Regional Property Fund number 1 Limited, which dissolved in 2019, the year of the infamous Chinese outbreak. And you can see the address is St John Street. Well, that address is used throughout the fraud. But they're linked to Forbes nominees. You can see here, here's Forbes. And just a little bit about Forbes, presuming that I haven't gone into it anymore, but presuming that is part of the Forbes Association, which is an American magazine founded by BC Forbes in 1917 and owned by Hong Kong-based investment group Integrated Whale Media Investment since 2014. Its chairman and editor-in-chief is Steve Forbes. Its CEO, Mike Federy, and is based in Jersey City, New Jersey. And interestingly, on the wiki article, a picture of Julian Assange there, which is very relevant because I've recently done a document in relation to Julian Assange, which every element of research surrounding Julian links back into this international government fraud. Julian, please contact me. I'm sure you'll be watching this video. I know that your wife, Stella Assange, will definitely be aware of this because there's been email correspondence sent to her, and everyone can look at that in the document that I've produced in relation to Julian Assange. On the right here, Forbes nominees, links to Yachts International Limited. I've just shown a couple because there's hundreds of companies for them. But I think that's quite relevant because yachts are a tangible asset in relation to money laundered through criminal organisations. We also have a Knightsbridge company, Knightsbridge Guarding Holdings Limited. I've noticed that is featuring a lot more now as we're getting deeper into this. I suspect you're talking about links to the Knights Templar and the creation of the Freemasons. On the right here, when you type in Knightsbridge, it comes up with this. It was a Chicago-based professional services consultancy providing enterprise-level information management services, including business intelligence, data warehousing, data integration, and information quality. It was acquired by Hewlett-Packard in 2007. And then there's a little bit of information down here. Its clients included AIG, Bank of America, it's very important, that features throughout the fraud, Capital One, Coca-Cola. A lot of these feature and link to Jeffrey Epstein, by the way. You can see that in the Jeffrey Epstein document. McDonald's, Liberty Mutual, various blue companies. Okay, see the blue companies there. And also Pfizer, so linking to the vaccines. That'll do for this part. Please come back and watch part 6. In fact, we'll keep going because I've just seen there's not that many pages left. So, okay, going back to David Wells, we have Most Unit Limited links to them. And I've just shown on the right here some changes in the addresses. I believe on the right here you can see an address of 114 Old Christchurch Road, Bournemouth. Well, that's very, very close to where my company is based, Central Bournemouth. But here you've got a change in address before and after the World Trade Center disaster. You can see on the left there, March 2001, an address change, and then in July 2002, an address change. Of course, that's another way of avoiding accountability and liability. Into Most Unit, you have Darren Parker linked to that address, and he was appointed in 1996 and then resigned not long after the World Trade Center disaster. He's connected to Kingston Barn Management Company Limited in Tolpuddle. That's very likely relevant, and I'm going to come into that in another video. And you can see on the left, London Law Secretarial Limited. Well, that means it links to the London Law Agency because that goes hand in hand pretty much. The London Law Agency is a fraudulently registered illegal entity company. When you go and look at the London Law Agency, please go and do that. You'll see London Law Agency in brackets the. You'll see there's no other name registered for it. Go into the incorporation document page on the filing history and you will see that actually the company is Ganvalon Motors. It's never been registered, and of course the government will know exactly what they were doing. Into this Kingston company on the right, you have Darren Parker, and Darren Parker links to Michael Parker Homes, again an address in Tolpuddle. And when you go into that company, Brunswick Place, Southampton, and on the incorporation document, you have Chettlebergs, which is again significant in the fraud and links to fraudulent company. On the left, back into Michael Parker Homes, we have Marilyn Parker, and on the right they're linked to the old Rickyard Management Company Limited, based in Wimborne in Dorset. Well, that's very relevant because the someone within my company supposedly lives there. On the left within that company, John Seaton, whose date of birth is a year after the World Economic Forum, which I'm finding is very prominent throughout the research around that date 1971. They link to Global Representation Limited, okay, so a global affiliated linked company. Also Global Forums Limited, and on the right you can see they are also linked to another Pegasus company. It's very important. Look at Pegasus. If you research it, you'll see it's an Israeli intelligence linked company that is also spyware to spy on people's devices, mobile devices, but also linked, it appears, to very sinister activities. Now, going into that company, Pegasus Solutions Pension Trustees Limited. So we're talking about pensions. And remember, if these sinister people remove many people, however they do that, or silence them, you know what I mean, take their lives, then of course there are trillions, billions, probably trillions of pounds worth of unclaimed pension funds available to these people to steal. And look at the company name changes. You can see that it was called Pegasus Solutions Pension Trustees Limited from 2000, before the World Trade Center disaster, and then changed its name on the 3rd of October 2001 after the World Trade Center disaster, removing Pegasus from its company name and then bringing it back again in 2007. On the incorporation document for this, we have Lovell White Durrant. If you look at my World Trade Center disaster document, you will see that is a company features prominently throughout. And on there, on the same incorporation document that we were just looking at, further down, you'll see a company called Summit International Hotels. Well, Summit International has featured recently and links to Switzerland. So we now have another Swiss connection. Going into the old Rickett company, or whatever it was called, you have corporate appointments within the people record. If you go click on them, you'll see they have over 21,000 companies. One of those is Eurofins Chemtest. Now, Eurofins I'd already come across, and Eurofins is a scientific company. It's a French group of laboratories headquartered in Luxembourg, providing testing and support services in pharmaceutical, food, environmental, agri-science and consumer products. Well, here they are, one of their companies, Eurofins COVID testing services. So they are linked to the you-know-what, starting in 2019 and 20. On the right there, that corporate company leads to Dorset House Freehold Limited. So we're not far away at all on the scale of things from the DWP Bournemouth company. And look all the things we're already hitting. Remember, there's over 5 million companies. And what we're going to see now is links to my company. So here we have Dorset Household Freehold Limited. And here they are, House and Son on the address on the left. Well, House and Son is a company that was literally right by the corner, and one of the people within and you'll see this soon with the release of everything, because these people appear not to be doing the right thing. You'll see that one of the directors, who appears to be heavily involved, went there to explain to them what I was finding out. And here's House and Son, and you'll see that on my previous research in relation to Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole Council, and I believe it's on the World Trade Center disaster. So here's House and Son. And the person in that in the Dorset House company, Jane Sperry, links to 23 Dean Park Road in Bournemouth. Again, linked to House and Son. You can see where they've changed the name here in 2003 So it had a company address of Hawthorne House, 1 Lowther Gardens. Well, that's really very relevant, because as I was making inquiries in my people within my company who you will see links to very soon in relation to the fraud, started trying to get me to get a new management company that was part of the Association of Residential Managing Agents, who is part of this fraud and links very closely to the Chief Associations of Police. And this was the address that was linked to those management companies. And within there, you can see Caroline Helen Kellaway links to that company. And again, on the right, if you click on her name, she links to Sandhaven Court Freehold Limited. And you can see the same address, 1 Lowther Gardens in Bournemouth, features closely to the fraud. And within Sandhaven Court, you'll see a connection on the right there to Ellis Jones Company Secretarial. And you will see on one of my next videos that talks about a headmaster who has been convicted of sexual abuse, potentially having abused students for 40 years, or pupils of his school for 40 years, links back to this company and to Fleming Companies. You'll see that very soon. That's it from DWP for now. God bless you all. Please, everyone's been deceived. There's still a time to change humanity and save humanity. It's absolutely possible, I promise you. These people have lost their moral conscience, it's very clear, and I'm going to be doing a video about that very soon. God bless you all. Take care. Bye bye.